Welcome to episode 2 of the Tiny Word Project podcast. This episode is with our first guest, Phil Newman.
In this episode, we dive deep with Phil, learning about how he became a pastor, his journey with IVF, and some inspirational motivation story of why you should follow your heart.
Phil's word that he chose for this podcast was hope. So stay tuned and listen about how his story was impacted by the word hope. Enjoy.
Thanks for joining us, Phil. Welcome to the Tiny Word Project podcast. How are you today?
This is pretty cool. I'm good. I'm in a little bit of corona lockdown, but I'm happy and I'm pumped to be with you boys.
Oh, thank you. We're very, very honoured to have you. Yes. As the first guest on this podcast. So yeah, thanks for joining us. And I hope you're enjoying the quarantine lockdown.
Look, I'm enjoying it. It's also interesting working from home with everyone at home. So, good. But officially it's amazing to be at home with the family 24/7. But having a toddler running around, it makes work interesting.
Oh, definitely can relate on that. Can you relate on that, Jacob?
Not really. I got 2 crazy dogs, so it's sort of similar in a way, I guess.
Missing out.
Oh, geez. So yeah, how are you coping with, because this is the current hot topic at the moment, is the coronavirus lockdown in Australia. How are you coping with it all anyway? Yeah,
it doesn't bother me personally. I think we're doing what we're meant to do. Work-wise, basically everything about my work has having to be reinvented and absolutely changed. So on one hand, I'm enjoying kind of the creativity of it all, but the actual workload has skyrocketed because what was super easy, super routine, super normal is like out the window, and it's like back to basics. How do we do all these things online? Yeah,
that's crazy. And just to touch base, of course, we know what you do for work, but like the listeners, of course, may not know what you do. So what do you do?
Yeah, so I am a pastor. So I'm the lead pastor of Impact Church at Erina on the Central Coast. And that big, pretty broad job description, a lot of, counselling appointments, lots of coffee with people, but alongside running, as pretty great but significant organisation comes all the normal management and leadership and, all the parts to all that every company has. So it's pretty broad, but I love it. I've done it for 20 years. I'm coming up for my second long service leave this year. So I started first year out of school.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you start when you were like 5 or something? Because
that's true.
You actually look quite well for your age. I mean, you're like creeping up on 55, right?
Wow. Well, Corona's changed you boys.
We forgot how to socialise.
That's right. Yeah.
Communicate.
Yeah, I know. No, I love it. I've done it forever, and I absolutely love it. Wouldn't change it. It's got its big challenges, but it's got massive rewards, and so I love it. I think there are moments I think I'm good at it, and there are moments I think I'm bad at it. But I just give my whole heart to it and love it, and hopefully another. So I could take 6 months off of long service leave and just hibernate and hide, but the problem is I can't go anywhere and enjoy those 6 months. So I figure let's just hold them up and enjoy them later.
Yeah, why not? Damn.
Yeah.
So you were saying that you did that you went into that straight out of school. Was there any sort of moment that was like the tipping point that made you realize that's what you wanted to do, or like whereabouts in your sort of life was that sort of the decision you made to go into that? Where did that come about?
Yeah, look, I guess when I was at school, I was a pretty intellectual kind of school student. Like I was a high marks kind of person and been wired that way. So I left school actually wanting to study law and commerce and things like that. So I actually went and did a semester of that and was really kind of heading down that road professionally. But I'd grown up kind of with my faith and, you know, from a church family, and honestly loved it and loved the whole side of helping people and all that side of things. But professionally, I think I was really focused on kind of that as a profession, the law or commerce in that sort of field. But soon after I finished school, one of my mentors actually spoke to me and said, "Look, would you be open to being coached and trained for working as a pastor?" And I guess a pastor isn't probably known for their high distinction grades, the need for all the sort of things that I had a background and a passion in and was sort of heading down. So it was actually a very much a heart decision. Like when they said that to me, I just couldn't shake the thought. And I thought, you know what, for the rest of my life, I really need to do what my heart, you know, beats for and what I'm personally passionate about. And so it was like, I think like my family and friends and my pastors and friends and coaches and mentors, there was kind of like this big resounding support for it. But it was definitely a leap of faith because I'd been tracking to, like, this is my professional goals, to earn this, to do this, to move to this place, to da-da-da-da. It was kind of very mapped out. And it flew against everything that I'd done. So I pretty well, by stepping out and kind of risking it, taking the leap of faith, it really was for me a big kind of reset on everything and kind of unlearning the professional sort of training that I'd had and was gearing for, and to really just kind of a right-hand turn and how to operate differently and lead people and manage people differently and step into so that pastoral counselor, a safe, inspirational, stirring, you know, where you have to motivate and encourage people personally, and you rarely can clock off at the end of the day, and you've got to be available for people, and so the great thing is because I made that call when I was young, from this is what my heart wants to do. I've never really doubted that I haven't done it because I was pressured to, expected to, or obliged to, or had no better options. It was like, hey, I made this decision myself out of love, out of passion, out of dream. And so even in the cruddy times, I can still go back to that moment and go, I know why I'm doing this and I love why I'm doing it, you know?
Definitely, yeah.
That's fantastic, man. That's really good and very pure as well.
I went to uni and I did commerce, and I was going to do law, and I studied classical music because I grew up playing classical music. And so literally every bit of my education kind of went out the window. And it was like, I don't play classical piano for like 20 years, but you know, it's really cool music, guys. It's really cool.
Yeah, we might get it. We'll start playing in the shop next time you come in, eh?
It'll really fit well with your brand. It really fit well with your brand.
Yeah, for sure. That's really interesting, man. That's so cool and so motivating for people that definitely want to go after their passion, but you know, don't really it's just inspiring for someone to just be like, get after what you want, you know, and stay true to what you believe and love deep in your heart there as well. That's fantastic. And what you're talking about definitely fits what we're about too, is, you know, 100%. is the meaning behind, you know, those little things like love and dedication and motivation and inspiration, all that kind of stuff. So thank you for sharing that, bro. Honestly, that's fantastic. Sure. So like with that being so positive, and of course such a motivating and inspiring thing for you as well, is to go after what you want. Have you dealt with anything really I guess negative or anything disheartening in your life that you've kind of like had to wrestle with and get over?
I think the two sort of milestones that I would call the big sort of challenges, the big trials, would have been that absolute life and career change. But I think personally, I've been married 13 years, and good marriage and everything. And we got a about 5 years into our marriage, we decided, we'll start to have a family and all that. And so we tried and tried as much as possible. And but after, I think it was about a year or 2 years, we still weren't pregnant, and went through, just went for the standard sort of test that you do. And so the test got sort of more and more intrusive, I guess would be the right word, more and more intrusive, and more, really trying to find out what's going on. And the doctors right around came up with this great description of why we couldn't fall pregnant. It was called inexplicable infertility, which was fancy doctor way of saying we have no idea. So we really wanted a family, and we really felt like it was, we weren't chasing it in the sense of like we needed it. Like it wasn't like our lives will only be complete if we have a baby. It was honestly just it was a dream of ours, a hope of ours. And so out of all that, we ended up doing 5 years of IVF, and it was definitely the hardest, by far the hardest season period of my life. My wife is she's Asian, and she's extremely sort of petite. Her frame is very small. And so for 5 years, she was giving herself injections in her stomach once or twice a day. So her gut was all bruised, and it was this incredible journey of 5 years of escalating to IVF, to harvests and operations, miscarriages, failed attempts. And it was the word I probably would use to describe it would be brutal, because you have to summon all your hope, and you follow what the doctors say. And I just would hold a hand as every night she's injecting this, needle into her stomach that ended up making her whole abdomen like bruised from so much stabbing, and the drug would bruise her. And so she, and I'll just hold her hand every day, morning and night, as she did it. And it was just brutal on your emotion, because you're hoping, building, results, and then say you get pregnant, and then miscarriage, and you go through, mate, we haven't just accidentally gotten pregnant. We've actually put all of our money, all of our energy, all of our emotion. I would come home from the office to help her inject, and so everything was focused on this thing, and then it would just crash. And so, injections and tests and intrusive stuff and upsetting stuff, and you just like this for 5 years, where emotionally, financially, we sunk every single cent we had into it, and we continued to do it. We did it kind of with eyes wide open. Like we were like, look, this is brutal, but we feel like it's the right steps for us. It's part of our journey. It's not for everyone, and not everyone should do it. But we felt like we had the headspace and the heart space to cope with it. But my wife is just a legend, to physically go through that, and to just see her fighting constantly. So 5-6 years of this crash, rise, crash, rise, crash. I remember like each Christmas was kind of like a big reminder, I think, of how it wasn't working. So it was sort of like this big family moment, and I personally would sit there and go, far out, this sucks, and I would feel like, as the husband, I'm like, I literally can't do anything to help, I've just got to support her, but I can't fix this, I can't make this happen. I was like, I will pay anything, go anywhere, do anything. And so we would just find the best doctor, and it just still wasn't working. So long story short, after 5 years, I think it was, we fell pregnant. And I remember that phone call, we screamed, we cried. It was just honestly the best day after my marriage day, best day. And then my wife developed this ultra rare, like 1% of 1% of women, ultra rare condition called hyperemesis, where I think with my vast scientific knowledge, the fetus, the baby, takes all nutrients, not just its portion. And so my wife got pregnant after 5 years of drugs, like shredding her body, gets pregnant, meant to be super happy, and then went into this critical care for what ended up being 8 months. We could only last 8 months of the pregnancy, where she was on transfusions every 2 days, drips, doctors like micromanaging her, keeping her alive basically for the pregnancy. And she got down to 36 kilos pregnant.
Whoa.
She was just, I thought she was, tough going through IVF for so long. She was an absolute weapon for enduring that. So she was getting muscle atrophy. She was she just couldn't eat anything, and she was throwing up 30, 40 times a day. So it was critical care, and we were fortunate enough to have doctors in our church and in our just friendship circles that would look after her, come to her house, give her drips, transfusions, help. And now I have this little half Asian toddler running around, and the day we had our baby, she got instantly better. Like the moment Suki, our daughter, was born, instantly Tamia stopped throwing up, stopped feeling sick, and within an hour, after 5 years, and then after 8 months of not being able to eat anything, an hour after her delivery, she was having chili con carne at the hospital. And I was like, guys, shouldn't we ramp up to something more? No. So, and the human body's amazing, but like the emotional, I'm sorry if I'm talking too much here, but the emotional,
it's about you, man.
I guess the battle, you just get it, like it was the battle we were meant to fight, and I don't regret it. I don't resent it. But it took substantial toll. I probably even think, she's almost 2, our daughter, and I still think we're walking out of the journey of that. You get tired on the inside, you get beaten up, and I'm very, 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 very grateful that my marriage survived, not just survived, but we made two choices. We made the choice to pull together, not be pulled apart, because there were lots of moments when, it was just IVF and the hyperemesis. You're like, this is too hard. And it was too hard, but we made the choice to pull together and do it together. And so it was important that's why I drove home to make sure I was with her every single step of the way, because I didn't ever want there to be any gap formed between us.
Yeah.
So that, and the other thing was, I personally made a choice in my heart during the IVF journey about year 4. No, actually it was year 5. It was right before our round with Suki was successful. I said in my heart, I'm not going to let my happiness be decided by a baby. Like, I think all of us should say, my happiness is not going to be decided by someone else. I need to be, and I'm going to be happy and fulfilled and content myself.
Yeah.
And it was like that day was like, because you just gritted through all this IVF and through all this hyperemesis. You just gritted. You just like gloves on, head down, going. And I realized, and when I made that choice, I was like, you just thought a load off. Like, it was still as much of a battle, but I was like, you know what? If this doesn't work, I still want to be a great person, a whole person, a happy person, and I don't want to smell of my journey. I don't want to walk around carrying this. I don't want that to define me. I don't want that to be who Phil is. And so I said, I want to use this cruddy season to learn from and to encourage people with, not be something that I whinge from and, remind everyone of, to get how bad Phil's life was. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. And we encourage people who are going through IVF, and we're very loud and proud about our story, because, we wanted to have a reason, not just be a bad part of our lives. We want it to actually be used for good.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. Man, seriously, like the whole time I was just mesmerized by little confession. I've heard this story before. Jacob hasn't. But even then, like when you shared it, just mesmerized by the powerful story that you told there. The shit you both went through I don't know, but like I've kind of lost words for it, but like you come out on the other side, and
I think it's definitely, it's one of those things that like typically having a child isn't the hardest thing for a lot of people, right? Like it's not a 5-year process for most people. And I think it's crazy to hear, obviously, from your standpoint, where it's something that I can imagine at times is very almost demoralizing because you're so, like you said, you don't have much control over what you can do. So for something that goes on for that long, where typically a lot of people would beat themselves up about it and sort of try or put the blame on themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy to hear such a long, drawn-out process that, I mean, in the end, you didn't really know if it was going to be successful or not. And thankfully it was. But yeah, it's crazy to hear something that would typically tear most people apart, you can imagine, because it's both stressful on you and your wife. And both of you can't really do much to control it. It's just sort of something that if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Yeah.
I think something I found, a lesson I learned was because like my role, I consider an aspect of my role is to help. I speak in front of people every week and coffee with people, and part of what I consider my role to be is to help people where they're at and help inspire, help encourage. And I felt that gap, that tension between trying to be inspirational yet being personally, like you said, demoralized, like personally the other extreme, totally uninspired, if you know what I mean. And I think I definitely grew in my peace that people don't, even my friends, they don't want to know Phil's perfect, and they don't want to know that Phil's got it together. We're all real. We're all got it. We're all going through stuff. And so I probably grew more comfortable with sharing my weaknesses and where I'm at. And I just think that is important, even professionally and personally. And I guess you got to be wise and intentional about, you don't just walk around going, hey everyone, this is my problems. But it's realness is what it's all about. And that's why I think honestly, and I'm not just saying this, but that's why I think this podcast and Tiny Word Project and all that, that's why one of the reasons I think this can have power is it doesn't come from fanfare. It comes from real, genuine stories and journeys. And so these words, the tiny words, actually have significant, substantial meaning because they've got personal meaning for people. And I just think that's a great. I'm very proud to be able to just contribute one little thing to that, and just I just think it's fantastic what's happening. There you go.
Oh man, we appreciate it more than you'd known. Like we're so happy to have you on, and like very excited for where this brand's gonna go. And I'll tell you what, to kick it off with a story like that, and with such a handsome man you are, and such a slick fade that you have, man, we're just super grateful. Hey, 100%.
Super grateful. If we're having a bad day, I'm just going to ring up and you can just shower compliments. That's fine.
Anytime, bro. Anytime. That's what we're here
really,
for.
Anytime.
So I tell you what, like, as we said before, before the podcast, we're going to keep it nice and short and sweet. We're so thank you so much for sharing that story, bro. Thank you so much. I know that a lot of people are going to get inspiration from it, especially even in the light of things that are going on now. I know personally someone that is going through IVF, and it is very disheartening to see them go through that, and they're disheartened and kind of low. But yes. It's going to give them a bit of power and a bit of oomph in their life, I guess. Let's leave it with this. Phil, what is one word that how would I word this? What is one word that inspires you, or is like
You would use to inspire other people, I suppose.
Yeah. What is one word that inspires you that will have an impact on someone else's life, and why?
Yeah. When you gave me the heads up that I needed to have one word, I dug deep because I didn't want it to be a cheap word. You know, I didn't want it to be a throwaway token word. So I really gave it I honestly gave it a lot of thought. And I thought, like, with our ups and our crashes over the last, it'll be 7 years now, and the incredible highs and the incredible lows, I think something that I kept deep in my heart was the word hope. And that no matter what you're going through, no matter what you're facing, keep your hope alive. Because if you've got hope, if you can still hope for things and dream for things, then you can keep going. And I definitely don't think Tam and I are anything special. I definitely don't think I'm anything special, but I do have hope, and it kept me going, it kept me alive, and it keeps me going now.
Man.
Definitely.
Hope.
Oh man, that's so good.
Because the thing about hope is that it applies to so many different circumstances, right? Like, it's not even like obviously it fit your circumstance perfectly, but at the same time, it can happen with anything. It can happen with day-to-day things. It can happen with something that's drawn out that long. Everything. And
you can tell when someone's hopeless, you know, like when they've given up. And they're hopeless in their profession. They're hopeless in relationships. And it's when none of us are at our best when we're hopeless, when we don't believe that things can be better and that they should be better. And so I think, you know, I have days where my hope like sort of drifts and I'm like, oh, come on. And you find it again. And so if there's anyone in any way that can kind of pull themselves or recognize, I guess, that they're in a rut, professionally or relationally or in your identity or in your confidence, I say get your hope back and dream again, imagine again. You're at your best when you got hope in your heart.
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic, man. Thank you so much, Phil, for jumping on the podcast, being our first guest. We are very, very grateful, and we love you. You still there?
Yeah, dropped out for a second. I got you back.
Very, very strange. Okay, well, let me say that again. Phil, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast and sharing your story. It's been very, very inspirational, and we're very grateful and very happy, inspired, all those fun little positive words. And we love you, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your quarantine time.
You too, boys. Appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot.
Bye, man. Bye.